Last week we did discuss about interdependence of mentality and physicality. In other words, the mental and physical are twins, and each supports the other. When one breaks up, they both break up through interconditionality. So the mentality, in the words, the mind or consciousness is arising dependent on the object or a phenomenon. So the consciousness is arising dependent on a physical phenomenon, a movements such as rising movements, falling movements, or phenomena hardness, hot, or sometimes the mindfulness or the noting mind is arising on another mental process or mental object such as thinking or mental image. The mind or consciousness can arise without condition. In other words, it can't arise without an object or phenomenon. So when meditators could keep up the efforts, then they realize that the mind is a condition for the arising of the physical actions and movements during walking or doing their routine activities. If meditators have developed sharp mindfulness and attain deep concentration, they realize that all actions and processes, movements are preceded by the mind. In other words, when there's intending mind to do something, then an action will take place. Or when there's an intending mind, then there's a process of movements will be occurring immediately. If there's no intending mind, then there's no actions or any process movements will take place. But it's not easy to see the intending mind if the mindfulness is not yet sharp and concentration is not deep enough. So we always emphasize on the cultivation or development of mindfulness. When meditators are able to develop constant mindfulness for a period of time, then they could attain deeper and deeper concentration. So in other words, when meditators could develop moment-to-moment mindfulness, and it is not interrupted by mental hindrances such as thinking, sleepiness, sluggishness of the mind, and so on. So this is known as momentary concentration. There's no gap between one mindfulness and next mindfulness. In other words, the object and the mindfulness or the noting mind are arising and passing away very rapidly. Then there will be another object arising and another process of mindfulness arising in the following moment. So the gap is very, very subtle. So when there's no interruption between one process mindfulness and next process mindfulness, then meditators will be able to attain deep concentration. Then they would realize the true nature of mental and physical phenomena. So when meditators could attain deep concentration, they come to realize the mental state of intention or wanting mind arising. But if meditators could not perceive the mental state of intention, then they did not have to make a mental noting intending. So we have to realize that we have to perceive or see the arising of the object, then we are able to mindful and know it. Only we can see the arising object and know it as it really occurs, then we shall be able to realize the truth eventually. If we couldn't perceive or seeing any object arising at that moment, if we make a mental noting, for example, we did not realize the intention but merely mentally say intending, this is not the way of mindfulness, because meditators did not really see the arising of intention but merely say in the mind. So in that way they may not able to see the truth clearly. So the scriptures say there are these four noble declarations, or in other words, the speech of the noble one. There are altogether four. Saying that one has seen what one has actually seen. Saying that one has heard what one has actually heard. Saying that one has sensed what one has actually sensed. Saying that one has cognized what one has actually cognized. Only when we can follow the teachings of the Buddha in this way, then we shall be standing on a path to realize the truth. So when we talk about the truth, Satya does not mean seeing something that's very lofty or noble. It also includes seeing unwholesome mental states or evil thoughts. So as you know, the second noble truth, the truth or the cause of suffering is tanha, or craving or attachments. We know from the teaching that craving or attachment is the cause of suffering, but it is the truth of the noble one. So when we talk about the truth, satya is not only about something that's very lofty or noble. So when you realize there's anger in your mind, then you have to face the truth. You have to see it as it really occurs. You should not turn your attention away. So during the practice of meditation, you may realize the ugly mind. We can say that these unwholesome mental states, evil thoughts, are ugly mind. Or sometimes you can see or perceive beautiful mental states or wholesome mental states. But we shouldn't choose what we want to mindful, because all these are the truth. So meditators should develop mindfulness based on personal experience. In other words, whatever is arising at that moment, they should mindful and note it as it really occurs. Mindfulness is manifested as a mental state turning towards the objects or the phenomena. In other words, coming face to face with them. So meditators cannot meditate or develop mindfulness based on one's own idea or the feeling of like or dislike. Mindfulness is also manifested as a mental state, protecting or guarding the mind from the attack of mental defilements or kilesa in Pali. So meditators have to realize that they have to train the mind or develop the mindfulness in order to realize the truth of the noble ones. So during mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness, when meditators begin to make progress, they realize the interdependence of the mentality and physicality or materiality. When they keep up the effort, they could realize that all actions and movements are preceded by the mind. But if meditators could not perceive the intention or wanting mind, then they need not have to make a mental note or intention or wanting. So during walking meditation, sometimes meditators could see the intending mind clearly. For example, when meditators could mindful, note standing, be mindful and note the standing postures a few times. Sometimes they realize there's a mental state for wanting to begin the walking, wanting to start the walking. So this one thing is an intending mind. So they begin to move. Be mindful of left, right, and note the movements as they really occur. But when mindfulness is getting sharper and deeper, they come to realize that every process movements is preceded by an intending mind as well. So they mindful and note standing a few times. Then they realize there's a mental state, wanting to start to walk. So if the noting or labeling is fast enough, they could take note of it, mentally say in one thing. Then they realize that there's intention to lift out the foot. Then they could note intending. Then the process of lifting movements will appear instantly. But sometimes the mental states of intention is arising and passing away very rapidly. Meditators perceive it, and then the movements of lifting appears immediately. The meditators should be mindful of that process of lifting movements and know it. So here you may see that there are two kinds of intending mind. One, we could know it as one thing. For example, when you mindful note standing a few times, then you realize there's one thing mind to start to walk. But if the mindfulness is very sharp, you realize there's a intending mind arising before the lifting movements. Then you note intention or intending. But sometimes the intention is not preceded by any wanting mind. When you practice walking meditation for about 1 hour, sometimes you perceive there's a thought wanting to go back to the hall for the sitting meditation. So this is a wanting mind. The meditator have to note one thing, then only begin to move. If the mindfulness is very sharp, every meditators will be able to perceive that every process of movements is preceded by intending. At the end of the sitting meditation, meditators may realize there's wanting mind to stop the sitting or to get up and so on. If meditators could slow down the movements, then they may realize that there's intention before opening eyes, intending opening, then intention to put down one of the hand, intending lifting, and so on. If meditators could slow down while doing certain routine activities, they may be able to see the wanting mind and the intending mind arising one after another. They come to realize that there's no self or person behind this intention or the actions or the movements. There's only an experience of the cause and effect. When there's an intention taking place, then, or when there's an intention arising, then the movements will be appearing instantly. So meditators come to realize the wanting mind and the intending mind mental processes. They are natural mental processes. Actually, there's intention before the movements. There's wanting mind arising before the actions. But if the mindfulness is not yet strong enough, meditators may not be able to perceive the intending mind and the wanting mind. So they need not have to search for it, look for it. So if the mindfulness is very sharp and concentration is deep enough, meditators also come to realize that the intending mind is arising and passing away immediately. And the movements that is arising dependent on that intending mind is also arising and passing away instantly. In other words, when there's intending mind, then there's a process movements arising. So that intending mind also subject to passing away. That intending mind does not persist until the following moment. Similarly, the process of movements also subject to arising and passing away. That process movements did not continue until the next moment. Whether intending mind or movements that arising at that moment will be passing away at the very same place. So the commentary and the scriptures say that the intention and the movements do not exist up to the next moment. But if meditators not yet endowed with a sharp mindfulness and deep concentration, they may think that the process of movements is a continuous process. For example, the process of lifting movements will continue to the process of the pushing movements and continue to the next process of movements dropping. If they see intention, they may think this intention arising, then there's lifting movements, then this intention, the same intention will cause the next pushing movements, the same intention will continue and cause the arising of the dropping movements. But when meditators could develop sharp mindfulness and deep concentration, they come to realize that the intention and the process movements do not exist up to the next moment. Meditators could only realize clearly, sharply, if they have developed sharp mindfulness and very deep concentration. So at that time, they realize the ultimate reality clearly. There's no self behind this intention. Sometimes meditators might think, I intend to lift up the foot, I intend to stop. But when meditators could see the ultimate reality clearly, there's no self except a pair of processes. One is the object, the other is the noting mind or the mindfulness. They come to realize this walking is not an action belong to a self or soul. There's movements because there's intention. So when meditators could see clearly, then they come to realize cause and effect clearly. During sitting meditations, when meditators are mindful and note pain, or any kinds of physical discomfort, sometimes they perceive there's a desire or wanting to move or to change the sitting postures in order to relieve the pain or that physical discomfort. So they have to make an effort and note desire. If they could mindful and note the desire attentively, precisely, then they realize that the mental state of desire is not a permanent mental process. It also subjects to passing away. And then meditators will not move or change the sitting postures, even though the pain is strong and has not disappeared. So in this case, we advise meditators should mindful and note the desire to move or to change the sitting postures or the sitting positions when the pain is getting unbearable. Sometimes meditators could not understand why they shouldn't move when in this case. In other words, when there's a strong pain or physical discomfort that causes the desire to arise. So here the desire is different from the intention or the wanting before the movements or the actions. The desire that's arising due to the strong pain or physical discomfort is a kind of desire for comfort, but it's difficult to perceive it. Usually most people will move or change the sitting positions consciously or unconsciously whenever they feel some pain or a little bit of discomfort. So they could not realize suffering, which is hidden in the postures. So the commentaries, in other words the Visuddhimagga, the path of purification explain that the characteristic of suffering does not become apparent because when continuous oppression is not given attention, is concealed by one's postures. So most people will move or adjust the sitting postures whenever they feel some pain or little bit of discomfort. So, in other words, it's concealed by the postures. It means one move or adjust the sitting position in order to remove the pain or suffering of the previous postures. So it continues. When one has changed a new postures, then they will feel some discomfort or little bit of pain or numb. Sooner or later, they will move again. So this change of postures remove the pain or suffering of the previous postures. So they could not realize the suffering or the pain. So only when one could give attention to it, then they would perceive the characteristics of pain or suffering becoming apparent. But even meditators could see the pain, mindful and note the pain continuously. But as long as they have not realized the characteristics of arising and passing away, they have not yet penetrated into the into the characteristics of suffering. So even though meditators experience a strong pain or any kinds of physical discomfort, they might think that they are experiencing dukkha or suffering, but is not yet realizing dukkha in the practice of mindfulness meditation with vipassana meditation. The characteristic of suffering or dukkha is explained in the Abhidhamma as the nature of being constantly oppressed by the instant arising and passing away. So as those meditators could not realize the arising and passing away of mental and physical phenomena, the instant arising and passing away of mental and physical phenomena constantly and continuously, then they could not see the characteristics of dukkha. So the characteristics of suffering or dukkha is the mode of continuously oppressed by rise and fall. So this is known as sankhara dukkha, suffering due to formations. So meditators, if meditators could mindful and note desire. Whenever there's a desire to move or to change a sitting positions due to the strong pain or physical discomfort, when they are able to mindful and know it continuously, and the desire has disappeared, then they would again stronger mindfulness as well as patience or khanti. So some meditators have to realize that this mental state of desire is different from the intention or wanting before the movements or the actions. So when meditators could mindful and note the movements, the intending before the movements well, they come to realize the cause and effect. If they can perceive the one thing, then there's actions. This action consists of a series of processor movements, and every process movement is preceded by intention. So when meditators could realize them clearly, then they come to gain a clearer understanding on the teaching of karma. As you know, karma is defined by in the scripture as cetana. Cetana is karma. The word cetana is translated as volitions or motive. So you come to realize all your actions begin from the mind. So one has to take responsibility of one's actions, because all the actions begin from one's own mind. So it's important to purify the mind from all kinds of kilesa or mental defilements. If the mind is not purified, or in other words tainted by defilements, so when the intention, when the volition or the motive is defiled by kilesa, for example hatred, ignorance, greed or craving, then one would commit evils. If the mental volition is free from all kinds of taints or mental defilements, then one will not commit any kinds of evils. One action definitely will be wholesome. So be mindful and note the wanting and the intention. It's very important in the practice mindfulness meditation, and it's also the foundation of the progress. So meditators have to slow down the movements gradually. Sometimes they have to be mindful of the processor movements in more details. Sometimes they only develop general mindfulness or general awareness, dependent on the condition. In those meditators develop mindfulness on certain actions, processor movements in more details at a suitable time, suitable place. But sometimes they are not able to be mindful of the processor movements in more details because the time and the place are not suitable. Then they should develop general mindfulness. So whenever meditators are able to develop mindfulness in more details on certain activities or process movements, then they may slow down gradually day by day. So only when they could mindful and note the processor movements in more details, then they shall be able to develop the momentum of mindfulness. So this momentum mindfulness is an important factor to make progress. It's not enough to mindful and note certain processor movements, for example bowing down 4 or 5 times. But meditators need to slow down the processor movements gradually. If meditators put a strong effort to mindful and note every process movements in very details in a short time, they may experience tension or pressure to the practice. So meditators have to increase the mental effort gradually. So when meditators have developed sharp mindfulness and deep concentration, they come to see clearly the interdependence of the mentality and physicality. During sitting meditation, when there's a process of rising movements, the mindfulness will appear instantly and perceive the beginning of the process, the middle process, till the moment of the ending. But when mindfulness is not yet sharp enough, meditators may not be able to perceive the beginning of process clearly. Sometimes they could not perceive the ending process clearly. So they need to strengthen the mindfulness, to develop the mindfulness, so that the mindfulness is getting more and more attentive and precise to every process movements and other object. So meditators should not intentionally or consciously exercise some control over the process of movements in order to mindful and know it precisely. If meditators who practice the mindfulness well in accordance with the guidelines and principles, they come to realize every object is a natural process. The arising of the mindfulness or noting mind is also a natural process. Meditators can't exercise any control over the arising of the object. He cannot exercise any control over the passing away of the object. They did not have to exercise any control over the arising of mindfulness as well as its passing away. So when meditators have developed sharp mindfulness and deep concentration, they come to realize all the processes of mental and physical phenomena are natural process. So meditators need to be patient and increase the effort gradually.